Major breaking news out of the state of Ohio. We have a major new study here by the Center for Justice Research. It's part of the Ohio Attorney General, according to this. I'll put a link to the study down below that has assessed the initial results of crime, the impact of crime or on crime from the recently enacted 2022 law allowing permitless carry in the state of Ohio. Very good outcomes in support of the right to keep and bear arms, and it really puts the lie to the suggestion that allowing Americans to exercise their right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment somehow, in some way, will endanger or increase the risk to public safety and to law-abiding Americans. It's simply not true. Check out the statistics that we're going to go over in just one moment from these professors and PhDs in 1 second. Stay tuned. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm honored to say a top 5 finalist in 2 separate categories for the 2024 Gundy Awards, one for top male influencer in the Second Amendment space, and the second for a top voice or top voices of the Second Amendment. I am honored and proud to be a finalist in both of those Gundy categories. Let's see what happens in Las Vegas in January. All right, folks, breaking news. This is important. Now, constitutionally, statistics about crime rates and guns are not relevant constitutionally and legally, because interest balancing between the good of the guns and the bad of the guns in society have already been done, as Justice Scalia said in the Heller decision, by the Second Amendment itself. That is the balance. And it concluded in a constitutional amendment that we have the right to keep and bear arms. With that said, we must always keep in mind that in certain respects, the best way to win a case involving the Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms is to prevent it from occurring in the first place, meaning make sure stupid, unconstitutional, totalitarian-style gun control laws do not get enacted in the first place. And sometimes that requires lobbyists and others in support of the Second Amendment community to help educate legislators and other public policy makers about the positive effects of guns, and of course also showing that respecting the right to keep and bear arms, including with, for example, permitless carry of handguns in public, does not endanger the public safety in any respect. Well, it turns out the Center for Justice Research here is part of the Ohio Attorney General's office, apparently. I'll put a link to the study down below. In a study entitled Pre and Post Outcomes, Ohio's Permitless Carry Law, done by 2 esteemed scholars, if you will, Melissa Burek, who is a PhD, and Julia Bell, who looks like has a Master's of Science in Criminal Justice, have just published a study on July 3rd of 2024, studying the impact of the 2022 permitless carry law enacted by Ohio and what was the immediate effect, if any, on crime rates and related public policy or public safety considerations and concerns in the state of Ohio. Well, as expected, to those of us who are familiar with guns, gun laws, and gun statistics, there's no shock that the effect of permitless carry in this new law, which loosened the ability of more Ohioans to carry guns in public, was favorable on all sorts of critical public policy considerations. Specifically, what the study showed is that in June of 2022, Ohio enacted a permitless carry law allowing Ohioans to carry a firearm without a concealed carry license. The Center for Justice Research was tasked to explore the relationship between permitless carry and crime involving a firearm before and after the enactment of the permitless carry law in the eight largest cities of Ohio. It goes on to say that this exploratory study considers crime incidents involving a firearm, validated gunshot detection incidents, and the impact of permitless carry law on the permitless carry law on law enforcement from June of 2021 through June of 2023. So that's essentially a 2-year period. Again, the 1 year before the enactment of the law versus the 1 year after the enactment of the law to compare those. Well, it turns out the study says that the major findings The study's limitations and the future research recommendations are presented in the full report, which I here on the 4 Boxes Diner will put a link to down below so you can check it out yourself. But in brief, this was the summary of their conclusions, and I think it was very favorable and really does show that allowing Americans to exercise the right to keep and bear arms, and I don't like to use the word allow here, but I don't have a better word right now, but for governments to get out of the way and let Americans exercise the right to keep and bear arms is the best public policy choice. Because we understood this. This is a not the only, but a reason why the Founding Fathers put the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms in the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights. Because they understood the importance, as articulated by the Italian Enlightenment philosopher Cesare Beccaria, that an unarmed man is much easier to be attacked by criminals or other tyrants than an armed man. That's not the NRA slogan from the 21st century. That is an 18th century philosopher, Cesare Beccaria, a criminologist, who was very influential, so much so that both Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both wrote down his famous quotes from Beccaria's book on crime and punishment basically in their notebooks, if you will. So anyway, with that said, it turns out that these data compiled and analyzed by these two researchers, 2021 and 2022-2023 data, basically confirmed, by and large, that Cesare Beccaria's 18th century views that more guns means less crime is correct. Among the results from the study includes that a trend analysis indicated a significant decrease in crime incidents involving a firearm for Akron, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and Toledo, Ohio, and across all eight cities studied, combined from June of 2021 through June of 2023. Again, the 1 year before the passage of the permitless carry law versus the 1 year after the passage of the permitless carry law. The study goes on to say that most cities' crime rates decreased after the permitless carry law was enacted. Unlike the other 6 cities, rates in Dayton and Cincinnati increased slightly, however, so they do flag slight uptick in Dayton and Cincinnati, but then they go on to say that Toledo, Parma, and Akron, Ohio, each experienced an average of a 19% decrease in summed rates of crimes involving a firearm after the enactment of the permitless carry law. Goes on to say that the data that they compiled and analyzed on the gunshot detection technology for both Toledo and Columbus, Ohio, also captured a decrease in validated crime incidents meaning after, the permitless carry law went into effect. Specifically, they said that there was a reduction of 23.2% and 20.6%, respectively, for Toledo and Columbus after the enactment of this law. And last but not least, and this is also great news because the anti-gunners try to, say that, it's dangerous for police, for ordinary people to carry guns, and as opposed to government monopoly on force. This argument this data appears to, undercut that argument because according to the study, based on data from June of 2021 through June of 2023, the enactment of the permitless carry law does not appear to have any appreciable effect on law enforcement injuries or deaths by firearm in the cities of interest, i.e. those 8 Ohio cities. So in sum, this is powerful evidence that can be used to show that in the immediate aftermath of the enactment of a permitless carry regime, you will not experience a bloodbath, which is the classic anti-gun argument that says that as soon as you allow all people in a state to carry guns without a permit, without being vetted in some way by government, and we won't get into some of the technical details associated with how you're allowed to permitless carry in Ohio. You can still get a permit under Ohio law, I believe. And then as long as you have passed a NICS check at some point, you can carry again. You can double check the laws there. But basically, you have a permitless carry regime in Ohio as a general matter now. They've loosened up the laws considerably as to where they were several years ago, which is good. Probably can go further. But with that said, again, I think this is the kind of study that really shows that when the anti-gunners come out and say, if you allow Americans to exercise their fundamental Second Amendment rights to carry guns without a permit, then you will have a bloodbath in the street. You will have the Wild West shootouts on every street corner. We know that is simply not the case. And I will just leave you as one common sense point before we close this video. If you think about it, The trend toward permitless carry over the last many decades has been a one-way ratchet. One thing that the anti-gun community cannot show us, of the 20 plus, 27 states or whatever it now is that have permitless carry, you cannot point to a jurisdiction that enacted permitless carry in the last several decades and then concluded it was too dangerous and terrible for public policy that they went backwards. Every state that has adopted permitless carry, going back to, I think, Florida in the 1980s, once they've adopted it, have either maintained their permitless carry regimes or they've even loosened the gun control laws to make it more favorable to the Second Amendment and the right of the people to keep and bear arms. So again, if the anti-gunner hyperbole, propaganda terms, propaganda arguments, that there will be a bloodbath in the streets if you let Americans exercise their right to keep and bear arms, it simply does not turn out to be true. It's not borne out by the evidence. And here we have another study out of Ohio that really corroborates the experiences of all those other states that have gone to a permitless carry regime. So again, while this is a study of only a couple years, it's not a long-term, data analysis or anything like that, but it certainly proves one point, which is that Ohio adopted a permitless carry regime in 2022, and they have not experienced the anticipated quote-unquote bloodbath or bloodbaths in the street, blood running through the streets that is often argued in hyperbolic language by the anti-gun lobby. So again, another bit of good news, and as we've taught you before, every little brick in the wall, every favorable gun case, every favorable win in the courts, every favorable win in the world of public policy, in the world of social science, in the world of scholarship, every little one of these bricks, when you add them all together, it builds a wall. This is how I always thought about it as a trial lawyer, as a litigator. Every fact, testimony, document, whatever it is, these are bricks you use to build up a wall. In this case, to build up a wall around and protect our right to keep and bear arms, and are all of our constitutional rights, not just those in the Bill of Rights, but the entire structure, the entire notion of our constitutional republic needs to be protected. And I'm happy to say that I think this decision, or this data analysis and research that just came out of Ohio, is another brick in the wall in favor of American freedom. Okay? Well, I hope you learned something here today at the Four Boxes Diner. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Make sure you've double subscribed because some people say they get knocked off the list. And again, feel free to follow me on X at Four Boxes Diner. And we will see you again soon here at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.